In this video, we've got managers being called, the cops being called, a lot of food sickness, and some particularly belligerent employees. What is the worst experience you have had at a fast food restaurant? I worked at McDonald's a while ago, and some kids stole something from a nearby store and got chased by the cops into our parking lot. They ended up getting cornered in our drive-thru, and one of them had been shot earlier in the chase, and we watched him on our cameras get out of the car, fall on the ground, and die while the paramedics tried to help him. That was rough. Edit. I guess I should clarify something. The cops didn't shoot the guy because he stole a couple of racks of beer. They shot him because, as he was trying to get away, he had a gun and was shooting at the police. That was some bad storytelling on my part. It would be nice if violence by cops wasn't a thing to be worried about, but I'm sure from the officer's perspective, it would be nice if they didn't have to get shot by dumbasses over theft. It's a complicated situation. Story 2. Chipotle, hands down. This wasn't really Chipotle's fault, but rather an individual employee of Chipotle. This girl I was seeing and I went to Chipotle after class. She got a burrito and I got nachos. Everything was fine until I went to wake her up the next morning and she literally looked like she was dead. Took her to the ER and they admitted her immediately. She ended up spending almost a week in the hospital and almost died. Turns out someone poisoned the tomatoes and caused half a dozen people to get deathly sick. Luckily, nobody died. Needless to say, I haven't been back. Story 3. Applebee's. Every Tuesday night, they have a clown called Stinky the Clown come and perform tricks for every table. Stinky accidentally hit me in the eye with his handkerchief. I woke up the next day with the worst pink eye in the entire world. I will never eat at Applebee's again. Story 4. I once dropped my order at McDonald's and the fries went flying all over the floor, under tables, etc. A couple of little kids, around 5, both filthy, instantly started snatching them up and eating them. It then became apparent that their parents hadn't bothered to order any food for their kids, just themselves. Story 5. Driving from Oregon coast to Seattle with a hungry family. We don't eat fast food, but traffic had been terrible and we knew we were in for a long ride. Longer than normal. So we pull into a roadside Burger King because it's the only thing to be found for miles that my wife would agree to eat. Because of the traffic and lack of options, the place is packed. Tables are dirty, people aren't cleaning up their trash, workers are in a foul mood. We eat as quickly as possible and get the frick out of there. About half an hour later, I have to pull over because I'm totally nauseous and about to blow out the back end. Luckily, I found a bathroom. Wife resumes driving because I can barely hold my head up. I throw up in an empty cup of tea along the way. It starts bucketing rain. An hour in, one of my kids throws up in the car. The other completely craps himself and throws up too shortly after. I am too sick/weak to do much about it, and my wife is doing her best just to drive us home. The car reeks. We're about an hour from Seattle, and my wife hurriedly rolls her window down and hurls. We're going 55 down the highway. She's driving, leaning her head out the window in bucketing rain, water streaming down her face. The kids are crying from the wind and the cold and the vomit and the crap. We pull over, and I resume driving while she occasionally pukes out the window. Worst road trip ever. Worst fast food experience ever. I have not eaten at a Burger King since. And this happened 12 years ago. Story 6. First, a tiny bit of background. My wife, who at the time was not just lactose intolerant, but get earth-shattering cramps, terrible smelling crap, and feel like she was on fire reaction if she got just a bit of any kind of dairy. We later found out this was caused by a faulty gallbladder that has since been evicted. Well, she went to a McDonald's right across the street from her crappy retail job and ordered a McDouble with no cheese, like she did about 3 times a week because it was cheap and close and she had very short lunch breaks at said crappy retail job. Well, she gets back to her work and noticed, hey, there's cheese on this. So she has to go all the way back over there and walks into the restaurant and asks to have it replaced. The manager comes over and asks what's wrong. When she said she ordered it without cheese and they put cheese on it, he just responded with a flippant, "So?" Now, this manager was not just some fresh out of high school kid. He had to be in his 30s, so you would think somewhere along the line he had grown up, but I guess not. She explains to him she is allergic to cheese and needs one without cheese. So he hands the sandwich back to the grill area, and they scrape the cheese off, rewrap it, and try to give it back to her. She watches them do this because he was too far away for her to stop them before he got back to the counter, and then trying to be polite as possible, explains she cannot eat a sandwich that has had melted cheese scraped off it Because she is freaking allergic, you stupid waste of human flesh. So he huffs and gives her more attitude and rolls his eyes and angrily throws the sandwich away and asks the grill to make a new one. She gets it, asks him if he is sure it doesn't have cheese on it. He says yes, and she leaves without checking. Gets back to work, opens up the bag, and guess what she finds on her sandwich? 2 slices of cheese. Now she has already burned like 35 minutes to get a stupid sandwich from across the street, and she normally only gets a 30-minute break, walks back over there, and the manager sees her coming and asks, "Now what?" My wife asked to speak to a different manager, who didn't give her any attitude. This new manager apologized personally, made her a new one, opened it up in front of her to verify there was no cheese, and refunded her meal as well. My wife, of course, got both managers' names and their store number. We then proceeded to report the entire story to McDonald's corporate, with a glowing review for the manager who handled it correctly, and a very condemning retelling of the crappy service manager. We got some gift cards from corporate, and the owner of that particular franchise verified the story with Manager B, and Manager A's employment was terminated. They asked my wife to come to tell her story at an employee meeting, but she declined. Story 7. So, I used to go to this Taco Bell down the street from my high school after finishing band practice with my friends. We went enough times that the drive-thru lady named Tiffany would be ecstatic to see us and give us free stuff. She called us baby every time we went through. It was great. I bet you're wondering how any of this could be bad. Well, the story takes a turn for the worst very quickly. So, we do the usual Taco Bell run and order the same thing, get all the same free stuff. We get to the window, and Tiffany is all smiles when her manager comes up to us and asks to see the receipt. We are kinda deer in the headlights and Tiff is nervous, so the manager grabs the receipt and asks why we are getting free food and drinks in addition to our 1 quesadilla. Tiff just kinda looks down and mumbles while the manager berates her for giving people free food, then fires her. She began crying and pleading for the job, saying she needed it for her son, but the manager threw her out, gave us our order, the 1 quesadilla of course, and said he would be keeping an eye on us. Story 8. At McDonald's once at 3 a.m. I went in after a party to have fries and a flurry. Cost about $3 to $4 all around. Anyway, as I'm waiting for my food, some man comes in. He was rattled. He demanded that the employees remake his whole meal of 3 cheeseburgers with mac sauce, 4 McChickens, and 2 large fries simply because they forgot mac sauce on one of the burgers. Between his rage and threats to hop the counter and beat the crap out of everyone, they obliged. It has been nearly 5 minutes now and I have not yet received my fries and ice cream, and I feel uncomfortable standing beside this man, but what can you do? Then he notices something. He notices that a kid working with the food, he assumes his food, is working without wearing gloves. He demands the kid come up front and face him. At this point, I'm absorbed by what may happen, but annoyed that the man is such a jerk. When the kid comes to the counter to talk to the red-faced, fists clenched man, he gets real nervous. The man tells the kid it's illegal to handle food without wearing gloves, and that if he doesn't fix this right now, he'd call the cops. At this point, I want to tell this man he's being ridiculous. I have worked for 3 restaurants and have never heard of this bogus law, but I just want my fries, and it's been nearly 10 minutes now. By now, the whole restaurant is on hold to deal with this man, and I overhear some people sitting at a table say, "Let's get out of here before I kick that guy's ass." After all, it's McDonald's. What were you expecting? Superior quality? He demands they remake his food because of the whole glove issue, and I was about to say something when someone in the kitchen calls the cops because that whole situation needed to be diffused. By now, I decide my food is a lost cause. I leave without getting my money back. This happened almost a year ago. A few weeks back, I was at Denny's and had an encounter with the same unstable man. Story 9. I used to hit up McDonald's on almost a daily basis in college. I don't know why, because this was a particularly bad McDonald's. Slower than anyone I've ever been to and worse quality to boot. But anyway, at least I knew what I was getting. One day, though, I waited a ridiculously long time for my food. It's been a few years now, so I'm not sure exactly how long, but it was unreasonable. I'd say around 15. Anyway, I take my food finally and head home. I sit down at home only to discover my order is wrong. I head back to the McDonald's and go inside and speak to the same woman who took my order. I give her the bag of food and explain the problem. She immediately tells me very rudely that that's not what I ordered. Like I said, I go there almost every day and order the same thing, the same way, every day. I know damn well what I ordered. She finally agrees to take my sandwich. I then tell her I'd also like another order of fries, so she starts to ring me up. I stop her. No, I meant for free. She shrieks at me, why? At this point, I'm fed up. I don't expect perfect service or quality from McDonald's or a McDonald's employee. I was annoyed I had to go back up there, but I understand mistakes get made and a lot. But this employee did not deserve a job the way she was treating me, so I changed my tone for the first time to actually be stern with her and tell her it's because she messed up my order and caused me to have to come back here, and now the fries are cold. I feel like a jerk, and I know working in the fast food industry is very difficult and you have to deal with a lot of crappy customers. I did not want to be one of those customers, but I think this person had it coming. Story 10. I went into a Roy Rogers restaurant once. I paid for a burger and fries. I expected there would be a cook in a kitchen somewhere who would then make me a burger for me to eat, but instead I was shown a rack of stuff made a few days ago sitting under red lamps. I took one and unwrapped it. The dried up meat patty slipped out and clonked on the counter. Clonked! I looked up at the cashier and they just stared back at me. I put it back on its stale bun. There were other people in the restaurant. They were all eating this stuff like some kind of weird zombie Twilight Zone. How did these people not know there were other fast food joints equally accessible off the highway where for the same money a person will actually cook the meat right then and there and serve it to you and include things like vegetables? I even saw one eat a French fry, which broke off like a pretzel stick in their mouth. Madness. This was the first and last time I entered a Roy Rogers. Story 11. Earlier last year, I was traveling through eastern Tennessee, and we decided to hit up this local KFC favorite that toted an all-you-can-eat buffet. The sheer novelty of an all-you-can-eat buffet overrode my common sense, so my traveling partner and I went there for dinner. It may have been the, hands-down, worst and most depressing meal I've ever eaten. The chicken was lukewarm at best. Everything kind of had this greasy film over it. The vegetables were clearly pulled out of a cheap can and more or less were nothing more than a medium for butter sauce. The mashed potatoes were clumpy and dry, like they had been sitting out for a week. They only gave us 3 cheap paper plates and would not supply more if asked. I thought that was weird for an all-you-can-eat buffet, but it didn't matter because after a second round, I had had enough. I just had an awful feeling sitting in my stomach that felt like grease and sadness. What was worse were the people around us. The place was packed with what seemed to be locals sitting around eating a very standard weekday meal. Their bodies reflected that. Never in my life have I seen so many morbidly obese families. Children only the age of 10 were easily 3 times my weight. We returned to our hostel and I ended up puking everything that evening. I didn't stop vomiting until I tasted my oatmeal from that morning. Then I was fine. Story 12. McDonald's, 1 a.m. I pulled up to the window and ordered a McDouble, a McChicken, and a large fry. Easy peasy. I drive up to pay and the woman working there hands me a McDouble, a McChicken, and a large black coffee. Large black coffee? I asked. Yes, she replied. I ordered a large fry, actually. No, you ordered a large black coffee. I'm pretty sure I ordered a large fry. Nope, you ordered a coffee. No, I didn't. Yes, you did, sir. Fine, just give me the coffee. Being non-confrontational, I pull out of the drive-thru and drive back into the line to order my large fry. When I get up to the window, I make sure to clearly and loudly enunciate, yes, I would like a large fry. A large fry, French fry, large. I get up to the pickup window for the second time and the same woman hands me yet another large black coffee. I definitely ordered a large fry. No, you ordered a large black coffee. No, I ordered a large fry. You said black coffee. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. Why would I drive all the way around and go through that drive-thru again and order a black coffee that I, again, don't want? So after 2 round trips through the drive-thru, I finally got my large fry, along with 2 large black coffees at 1 a.m. Story 13. I got some Wendy's chili once about 12 years ago and crapped blood. My thought was, no way Wendy's chili did this. I went to the doctor and got checked out. He gave me a clean bill of health. Had Wendy's chili about a year later and again, same thing. So at best I can figure, Wendy's chili makes me crap blood. A few things. It was from the same Wendy's, so maybe it's just that Wendy's. Correlation does not equal causation, so I guess I could have crapped blood 2 separate times on 2 separate occasions and the chili eating was a coincidence, but I somehow doubt that. It's possible, though. My wife had brought up the notion that it isn't, in fact, blood and is just some deep red coloring due to food coloring, tomato, and some kind of spice, which seems possible, but nothing else has ever made me do that. Basically, just to be safe, I don't eat Wendy's chili. Story 14. When I was a kid, I loved McDonald's, but only ate plain cheeseburgers. So when somebody was ordering my food, I'd make sure they asked for it plain, otherwise I wouldn't eat it. Yeah, I was a fussy bastard when I was a kid. Anyway, so it's my friend's birthday party, and we stopped by McDonald's on the way home. I told my friend's mom I would like a plain cheeseburger in my Happy Meal, and then she brings everyone's meals to the table. This one is the plain cheeseburger, she says as she hands me my box of lies. My excitement quickly turned to despair upon my first bite. It wasn't plain. Far from it. The gut-wrenching concoction that lay atop the patty gave my taste buds the fright of their life. This isn't plain, I told my friend's mom. Now here's where the story gets worse. She figures out she gave the plain burger to my friend's sister instead, and she had already taken a couple of hefty bites out of it. Now, I had a little bit of germ phobia when I was young, so when she swapped the partially eaten burgers around, uniting me with my much longed for plain burger, I was a little hesitant to eat it. In fact, I was pretty adamant that burger would never grace my lips. My friends began to kick up a fuss and kept telling me to eat it. I tried to tell them that I didn't like other people's germs, but it was no use. The birthday boy was very angry at me, and from his point of view, I can understand why. It didn't matter to me who had taken a bite out of it. I was just never going to eat a burger someone else had half eaten. It just had to be his sister, didn't it? I thought to myself. It was like some horrible sense of fate that out of all the people at the party, the one person with Down syndrome had taken a bite out of my cheeseburger, thus making me look worse than Hitler. That incident is forever known as the McGerm Burger. Story 15. There used to be a KFC just outside of downtown Napa, California. It was located within walking distance of a pet supply store that was happy to let customers bring their dogs, cats, goldfish, or whatever else with them while they did their shopping. Unfortunately, the proximity of these two businesses meant that some people would occasionally try to have their pets accompany them for lunch. And although the management frowned on that, they didn't do very much to curb the behavior either. On the day in question, I had stopped into the restaurant for what I hoped would be a quick meal before a job interview. It wasn't the smartest detour, I'll admit, but to be entirely honest, the smell from outside the establishment had attracted me. Unfortunately, the moment I walked through the front door, I was hit with an almost debilitating wave of nausea, as thick, pungent stench of wet dog filled my nostrils. It was almost enough to make me turn around and leave, but I foolishly decided that since I'd already made it inside, I should still get something to eat. My first mistake, if you don't count my continued presence in the restaurant, was looking for the source of the smell. I wound up making eye contact with a large woman sitting near the front counter who was alternating between dropping ice cubes down various parts of her clothing and pouring small amounts of water onto the floor. These puddles were being consumed by an equally large dog of indeterminate breed that looked as though it had recently been in a fight with a particularly irate landfill. My second mistake was mentioning the unpleasant aroma to the girl who took my order. Although she expressed sympathy and told me that the manager had already been informed, my complaint was overheard by the woman who was responsible for the odorous beast. "Huh?" she yelled, sounding like a rather creaky hinge. "What'd you say about my dog?" And when I didn't respond, the woman shouted again. "Huh? Huh? I'm talking to you. You got a problem with my dog?" Seeing no other alternative, I turned to face the woman. "He doesn't smell very nice," I said. "Huh?" the woman replied. "You got a problem with how he smells?" Before I could think of a response, the woman hurled her half-full cup at me, thoroughly drenching my suit. Furthermore, it turned out that she hadn't been sharing water with the canine, but rather some kind of clear soda. I wound up having to rush away for a change of clothes before I could complain to the manager, and when I returned later on that afternoon, I was told by another employee that I was too late to report anything. That was the last time I visited that particular KFC. The smell, incidentally, was still lingering when I left. Story 16. Oh, I've got one. So I'm in a drive-thru line at a combined KFC/Taco Bell to pick up some food for other people who weren't there and I wasn't getting anything. 2 cars are ahead of me, and 5 minutes later I finally get up to the microphone/menu thing to order. Very slow considering they're not busy, but no big deal, it's 8 at night and they're probably understaffed. So I place my order of a few burritos and a chicken sandwich, and then wait another 5 minutes or so for the one remaining car ahead of me to get their order, and then I pull up to the window. No one is there. After about 2 minutes of staring into an empty window, a young lad comes by, swings open the hatch, and holds out a hand, presumably for my debit card. I pay and get my card back and a receipt without a word being exchanged. 5 minutes go by without another soul coming to the window. Now, unless Taco Bell and KFC actually import their ingredients from Mexico and Kentucky, I can't figure out what's going on. The young lad finally comes by with my food, and I very politely say, I know it's not your fault, but can I speak to your manager? I've been here for a very long time. Yeah, hold on. This is no exaggeration. After another few minutes of no one coming to the window, I'm determined to speak to the manager. 10 minutes after getting my food, my car is still parked sitting in front of the window. The line, even at this late hour, is getting rather long. I decide it's time to head inside. I pull around, park, then go wait in line. There's only one older woman ahead of me, and she just finished her order when I walked in. As soon as I came through the door, everyone behind the counter headed to the back and disappeared. So I'm just standing there, holding my hands in front of me. A friendly smile passes between me and the old lady. Another 5 or so pass, and I suddenly see flashing red and blue lights reflecting off the walls. I look out the windows to see 5 police Crown Vics and SUVs pouring into the parking lot like it was a bank being robbed. I exchange a glance at the lady next to me, both of us feeling perplexed. An officer comes in through the door, glances around, and says to no one in particular, "What's going on here?" I turn to him, shrug, and say, "You're probably here for me?" A young lady who works there, the manager, appears from amongst the cooking appliances, flanked by 2 other employees. All of them have their name tags removed. "Officer, get him out of here! He was hollering and banging on the window!" I turn to the officer, and he nods his head toward the door. I tell him what happened, and he rolls his eyes and says, "It's a private business, so they can technically say you're not welcome if they choose." As we're standing out in the parking lot, he says to me the 911 call they received was, "We need the cops." Click. The final interaction between the cops and me was, "Are we blocking you in? We can move if we are." Kind of. Do you mind?" "Not at all. Have a good night." "You too. I live in the same town, and I haven't been back there in 5 years since."